Hi, friends. Welcome to Coaching Conversations. It's been a while since I have done one of these, but last week I was having a live chat on Instagram with a friend of mine who is an artist, Sarah Schroeder Art. Go check her out on Instagram. She's incredible. And we were having a conversation on the Enneagram and creativity, and it was so much fun, but I felt like there was more there that I wanted to explore. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about the Enneagram and creativity. But first, let's define our terms. What do we mean by creativity? Because oftentimes I think we imagine creativity, maybe it's just me, I imagine it as being this artistic expression, photography or painting or graphic design or musicians. And maybe you're not someone who practices those kinds of artistic endeavors. However, I believe that we are all creative, and I believe that creativity is necessary for living a whole, full life. So when I say creativity, basically what I mean is anything where you are bringing your thoughts, your desires, or your ideas out into the world. That's creativity. That is taking what's inside, formulating it into something and putting it out into the world. So relationships need creativity. Conversation requires creativity. Problem solving requires creativity. Even designing your life, how you want to live, where you want to live, what you put in your body, what you put on your body, whatever we do, we are creating the life that we want to live. And when we're creating, we want it to flow and we want it to be aligned. And so a lot of Enneagram work relates directly to creativity because creativity requires two things. It requires that we know ourselves. It requires that we have some sort of internal awareness of what do I want to do? What do I want to say? What ideas do I have? What creations do I want to bring into the world? How do I want to move and speak and talk? So it requires us to know ourselves. And then the second thing that creativity requires is for us to allow ourselves to be seen, to allow what's inside to be externally manifested, expressing who we are to the world. And both knowing yourself and expressing it requires courage. Both of those require self-awareness, and both of those require self-acceptance. Now, here's what gets in the way of those things. Our Enneagram type is a way for us to edit down our humanity and limit ourselves to only expressing a certain piece of who we are as humans. And we do this because we're trying to be safe. And we do this because as children, we figured out that being a certain way kind of works for me. This helps me make my way in the world. But when we live for so long in that sort of half existence, and we're going to go through for each Enneagram type what that looks like. But when we live in that half existence, we actually aren't living out the full potential of our creative energy because we're not actually fully showing up in our life. We're only showing up in the way that we feel is safe and acceptable and okay and beneficial for us. That gets us what we want and what we need out of life. And after a while, it actually stifles us. What once was our way of being in the world and our armor to keep us safe becomes almost like this cage that makes us feel trapped, makes us feel like there must be something more because this doesn't feel like I'm fully expressing, fully creating, fully actualizing who I am. And so our Enneagram type directly impacts how our creativity is expressed and how we live our lives. There's this fear that we can't fully be ourselves. So let's look at what that looks like and means for each Enneagram type. Type 1s have this idealization that they have to be the good person. And so what that means, if that's who I have to be, then that also means there's something I cannot be. I cannot be bad, and I cannot make a mistake. And I cannot allow myself to risk doing something wrong, or at the very least, I'm going to do everything I can to avoid risking doing something wrong. The problem is, as humans, we both do good things and make mistakes. We both do fantastically well at some things, and we kind of flop at others. And so when a type 1 is holding themselves to only allowing themselves to live in this space of being the good person, then they turn their back on anything that is contrary to that. So we can see how this would affect creativity. We can see how this would keep a type 1 from a lot of risk taking, especially in creative endeavors where there isn't necessarily a right or wrong way to do something, especially when we're talking about things like music and art, or even crafting a meal, or designing a home, or creating an outfit. You could use blue or pink. Neither color is good or bad. And not having a defined right or wrong way to do something, and having a fear of ever being that bad, wrong, mistake-making person can keep a type 1 from feeling the freedom to be a full-orbed person who both makes mistakes and does things really well. So type 1, if you're feeling creatively stifled, if you're feeling a little bit trapped, you are going to need to do some internal work. I recommend breath work to allow yourself to explore what would it be like to be fully human and be okay with the discomfort of making mistakes sometimes. And even though that can feel uncomfortable, it is actually the path through to freedom and wholeness. So I invite you to consider, just imagine, what would it be like? All right, let's move to type 2. Type 2 has to be the helpful, generous, never selfish person. So this is who type 2 kind of idealizes themselves to be. And what that means is they can never be someone who considers their own needs first, or someone who prioritizes their own needs above others. So they kind of turn their backs to that kind of energy. Again, here's the bad news. As humans, we are both givers and receivers. We both can provide for others, and we also need to be provided for. And in fact, we find that the two are linked. I really can only fully love others to the level that I love myself. And if self-love is something that 2s are lacking, and they are trying to get it from somewhere else and someone else, it will not be a true love that they offer to others, but in fact, it will be a sort of exchange. I do this for you, you do this for me. And that's not actual love. So the 2 remains starved for love because they're not giving the love to themselves that they want to give to others. And so how this impacts creativity is that, creativity wells up from within. And if as a 2, you are always others-oriented and reaching out to others from your heart center, wanting to know what they need, wanting to give them what they need, there is almost a complete disconnection from your own heart center and what is welling up within you. So how can you create from a place of true alignment and joy and desire and excitement when there is no connection to that internal sort of magic, that creative magic? And so type 2s, what I invite you to do is to allow yourself to be fully orbed human and allow yourself to step into the uncomfortable space of being a receiver, and especially being a receiver of your own energy. So not just asking others to take care of you, but are you taking care of you? Are you willing to receive your own energy? So taking all that energy that's outward facing and pulling it in, spending a whole afternoon instead of building something for someone else, building something for yourself. Because where twos can just spring up to creative life is when they pull in some of that energy and find that when they pull it in, it actually comes up and out, but from a place of self-nourishment first and then nourishing others, as opposed to the reverse, nourishing others and finding self to be empty. So we can see how just reversing the cycle still does end up allowing twos to be a generous well of others, blessing others and giving to others, but only when it comes from within first. Only when the love is poured in, the energy is coming back into themselves. That's where twos are able to find this alignment to their creativity and also self-love and desire. All right, let's go on to threes. Type threes idealize themselves as those who are always successful, always effective, always productive, and looking good while doing it, wanting to hit all the bases. So what we turn our backs on as threes is, I cannot be inadequate. I cannot be a failure. I cannot appear to be a mess or in shambles or, not put together. Now, as with every type, as humans, we are both wonderfully successful and talented, and also sometimes a mess. Also, sometimes we need a break. We need to rest. We can't do it all. And that's just a part of being human. And so as with every type, the work is, can I embrace and sit in my full humanity, not just the one part that I like, but all of it? Can I allow for failure? Can I allow myself to not be great at something? What is it that they say? The first 10,000 times you try something, the first 10,000 hours you spend doing something are not good. So as a three, allowing yourself to be not good at something is where you can find some courage to create what you actually long to create, rather than creating what you're already good at and other people seem to want from you. So you see, when we create things that we're already good at and other people seem to want from us, it's actually kind of boring. It's actually kind of unfulfilling because there's no connection to our own desire. There's no connection to our own humanity. It's an outward producing kind of energy. So similarly to the twos, threes need to be able to, one, allow for themselves to be failure at times, and two, allow for themselves to be self-referencing in what it is that they want to produce in the world. So when threes have the courage to ask themselves, what do I want to create? And then have the courage to listen to that answer and realize, in order to do that, I'm going to have 10,000 hours that kind of suck. That's when the alignment and the excitement and the full humanity experience is available to type threes. That's when we're able to really create things that feel personally fulfilling, not just prop up the successful image that we want to maintain. And I gotta tell you, I lead with type three. I gotta tell you, it's worth it. It's worth it. I know it's scary to kind of pull away from that successful image that we have, that we love to keep going and keep building. But when you're going from your heart, all that three energy, and we've got a lot of energy, all that three energy, oh man, it can create some beautiful things if we have the courage to allow ourselves to kind of fumble around a little bit first. Yeah. All right, type fours. Type fours want to be seen as and see themselves as, and again, the things that we idealize about ourselves, it's not just how we want others to see us, it's how we see ourselves. We genuinely believe this is who I am and this is all I am. And that's where the danger comes in, because it's not true. It's not all you are. So type fours, your idealized self is someone who is authentic and unique and original and a one of a kind. and kind of exceptional and extraordinary. So that means that what you turn your back on is the ordinary and the boring and the mundane, because that is the opposite of exceptional and extraordinary and unique. And so when we don't allow for the mundane or the ordinary to be a part of who we are, we don't see that as a part of who we are, then there is such a strong pressure that anything I creatively put out into the world has to be ordinary, unique, exceptional, and just phenomenal. Otherwise, why even try? Why even do it? Why even put in the effort? And this robs you, fours, of the joy of creating. Because most fours will tell you, actually probably most humans will tell you, when we stifle that creativity, we actually stifle a piece of our life force. And we feel lower energy, we feel stagnant, we feel stuck. And that's one of the fears of type 4s, is being stuck in mediocrity. So it's almost the need to always be exceptional ends up placing you exactly where you don't want to be, which is stuck in mediocrity. And so what I invite you to try out, 4s, is to allow for both to exist. Allow for yourself to be a full-orbed human who both has exceptional, unique, and one-of-a-kind qualities, and also sometimes you make some mediocre stuff. Sometimes you like some basic stuff, and that's okay too. Allowing for the fullness of humanity is actually what allows for the flow of energy. You see, when we stifle ourselves and identify with only one piece of ourselves, we are actually trying to hold on and keep all of our energy in one spot. And I don't know about you, but energy does not stop. Energy wants to move. Energy wants to flow. When we recognize and flow with it, that's when we're in alignment with it. But when we try to control, stifle, or edit down our energy so that it fits into our box, that's when we feel out of alignment, and that's when we lose our touch with creativity and life force. And so while it might feel safer to maintain some sense of control, it actually ends up being counterproductive when we want to live a full creative life. All right, type 5s. Type 5s, the idealized image that you have for yourselves is, I always have to be knowledgeable and autonomous, self-sufficient, and therefore you turn your back on anyone who's going to be intruding upon your energy, or anything that will intrude upon your energy, or emotions. Emotions feel very scary for type 5s. And so the problem is emotions are energy. And again, we see here the need to try and control and stifle this energetic flow that is actually giving us life force and power and creativity and that spark. And when we are suspicious of it, or we feel like it will drain us, then there's this internal resistance which can shut down the creativity. So type 5s, what I would invite you to explore is, maybe as a human, you both can be someone who can provide for your own needs, but also can rely on others. And at times as humans, we need to rely on others. And so allowing for that to also be a part of your human experience is what will allow you to have emotions. Right? Because that's the fear behind not wanting to have emotions for 5s. Emotions will drain my energy, and emotions may, if I give into them, if I feel them, I may come to a place where I need someone else's help. So if you can move into that and accept that needing others' help is part of the human experience, then having emotions doesn't feel quite so scary. Because even if you feel those emotions and they lead you to a place of needing others' help, you've kind of already made your peace with the fact that as a human, that's going to happen sometimes. And so when that is a part of what you allow in your life, that's where there's deeper connection to your life force, your creativity, your energy and emotion, and all of that being allowed within you not because it's going to drain you, but actually it feeds you. So it's kind of similar to what we were talking about with the type 2, only the reverse. Whereas 2s put all of their energy externally and feel empty inside because they're not loving themselves and feeding into their own needs. 5s are on the other side, where they suck all of their energy in and they don't want to give it out because they feel like it will be lost and then they won't have what they need. But sucking all the energy in actually ends up making it sort of stale and stagnant and not strong enough to sustain the 5. So the very fear becomes the reality through the very act of sucking in. Because again, energy isn't flowing. Energy needs to flow internal and then external. And as we both feed into ourselves and then generously allow it to flow out to others, that's when that constant renewal and recycling and just the flow is there for us to live creatively and live wholeheartedly. Okay, let's move on to type 6. Type 6's idealized self is to always be loyal and reliable. And this word reliable is so important because what that tells us is that 6s want to be able to be relied on, therefore they have to be prepared for anything that might happen, because if someone's going to rely on me, I better have a plan. I better have the resources. I better be able to support them. And also, will they support me in turn? So this reliability and reliableness we see at the core of some of the ways that 6s show up in the world. And when you're trying to avoid being caught unprepared for whatever might happen, what you kind of turn your back on is spontaneity. You kind of turn your back on this trust that things will work out. And that spontaneity and trust that things will work out is where we find playfulness. That's where we find the ability to dabble in things that may come out great or may not. And when you lose that space of playfulness, we lose a big piece of our creativity. And so 6s, what I would invite you to do is to allow yourself to be a human who both can be prepared, and also at times you may be caught unprepared, and yet you will probably find that you're still going to be okay. And at times, if others rely on you and you didn't have what they need, the world will go on. The heightened state in which you feel you need to hold yourself to always be vigilantly looking, is robbing you of those playful, things will work out, let's try something new, spontaneity, that is kind of that life force of creativity. And so 6s, I would just invite you to allow yourself to be human. Kind of similar to the 3s. Things can fall apart without you. Things can fall apart without you falling apart. I think a lot of times we connect our worth and our personhood to what we do, and that's where things feel high stakes. Even simple things. This is a great question to ask yourself. Even simple things like what to hang up on your wall or what to make for dinner can feel like this high stake decision. And so a great question to ask to just kind of help lower in is, what if I just tried something new and it went terribly wrong and dinner was awful? Well, we could run out and get a pizza. Or what if I put something on the wall and I hated it? Well, I could put something else on the wall. This is that playful, if things don't turn out well, we can always redo them. And allowing yourself, especially in things where the stakes are low, to be in that playful state is going to expand your capacity when things are even a little more high stakes, to be able to press into faith rather than fear. So creativity is a beautiful space for 6s and their growth work. All right, 7s. 7s, your idealized self is to always be optimistic and enthusiastic. Always see the bright side, always see the potential, always see the opportunities, always be in anticipation of what is coming next. What that means is you're turning your back on the very real human experience of sometimes there's sad things in life. Sometimes we are heartbroken, and that's okay. Because just like with the 6, when things fall apart doesn't mean you have fallen apart. If you feel heartbroken, your heart is still beating. feeling into that uncomfortable space and allowing for sadness and allowing for pain and allowing yourself to be in the present moment with what is something that you can't do if you're always having to be the person who's anticipating what's to come. And when you're always anticipating what's to come, you miss what is. And that's where satisfaction is found, which is what sevens are always looking for, satisfaction. Satisfaction is only found in the present moment, so you will always be searching for it until you're able to come and be present with what is. So how does this affect creativity? Well, if you're always planning to do things and never actually doing them, or if you're doing them but not actually present with the doing, again, that stifles the energy that is available to you now. And the energy that's available to us in the future is thin energy. The energy that's available to us now is substantial and hefty and powerful. And so you miss out on that power, and what it can feel like is always chasing this thin energy and always feeling like, I don't know if it'll hold me. And so as you can be in the present moment, sevens, that's where your creativity and all of your planning actually feels substantial and satisfying. And that's a beautiful place to be. All right, type 8. 8, your idealized image is always powerful, always in control, always ready to defend and to fight. And that means you turn your back on weak and vulnerable. You turn your back on oftentimes tender and soft. And again, let me just say, we're looking for full humanity, which doesn't mean I don't want you to be strong and powerful and in control. Or sevens, I don't want you to be planning for the future. All of that we idealize ourselves to be is still part of who we are. It's just not all we are. So the work is to keep the idealized self and also allow for the part that we reject of ourselves, which is for type 8s, weakness and vulnerability and softness. And so how this affects creativity for 8s, oftentimes that soft, vulnerable place is where the beauty is found. And oftentimes that playful space we were talking about with the 6s, 8s can have a harder time getting into that playful space as well. Because when you're always looking for danger and when you're always being ready to protect and you need to be in control, there's not a lot of spontaneity there either. So letting yourself at times be weak or vulnerable or open or soft gives space for spontaneity and playfulness and beauty and desire and longing. And that's where you can come up and out with some beautiful creative energy, because you're not only needing to be strong and powerful, you can still be that, but also making space for the fullness of your humanity, which includes softness, tenderness, longing, desire, sweetness, beauty. That's there too. All right, wrapping it up with type 9s. 9's idealized self is always easygoing and harmonious, always laissez-faire, relaxed, calm and peaceful, easygoing, easy sailing. Here's the thing though, 9s, you turn your back on your desires, your preferences, especially your preferences, and your cravings. And you do so by numbing them. So it's not even like a conscious, I'm going to turn my back on these things. It's literally like, I don't even feel them. I don't even feel them. And so 9s, allowing yourself to have preferences, allowing yourself to have desires, that can feel very scary, and it can almost feel like a big giant black hole that you can't even tap into. So my encouragement for you when it comes to stirring that back up and reconnecting to that fullness of your humanity is getting in your body, doing something that is playful and light and happy and joyful, and even maybe a little competitive if sports or some sort of game is something that you enjoy. And that will connect you to the body, which is the entrance to the desires, the preferences, the wants, the ideas. And then the second half, we kind of talked about this all the way at the beginning, is not just connecting to them, but having the courage to put them out into the world. And when you feel okay with having a voice, right? Because the opposite of being kind of peaceful and calm and laissez-faire is having a voice, an opinion, a point of view. A point of view, nines. Can you allow yourself to be a human? Because humans sometimes don't care about things, and sometimes they have a point of view. And both can be there. Both are allowed. And in fact, both need to be there if you want to experience the fullness of our human experience. So allowing yourself to have a point of view and express that is going to reinitiate the flow of creativity for you. All right, friends. That is sort of some conversations I want to have about creativity in the Enneagram. Creativity is so much more broad than I think we give it credit for. I think it's vital to the human experience. And I do think that each of our Enneagram types in their own different ways keeps us from truly being aligned with our creative energy. And I would love to hear from you. Where has this hit? Where do you experience some misalignment or flow when it comes to creativity? Being students of ourselves is what the Enneagram invites us to do. I'm not here to tell you, because you're a type 4, cha-cha-cha-cha-cha. I'm here to invite you, as I talk about considerations for each type, for you to be your own student of yourself, and in that way, unlock a deeper and more full human experience for yourself. That's what I'm trying to do, and that's what I hope you're here to do with me. Thanks so much for watching. If this has been helpful for you, I would be so honored if you would share it and continue to work with me as we seek to liberate ourselves from those pesky personality types. All right, friends, I'll talk to you later. Bye.